Yeah, you don't look that old. I'm good, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So. The surprise or something unexpected?
No, it was a surprise. So I'm walking.
You're right beside that?
Yeah.
Still get it once.
Oh. All right, yeah.
Yeah. Any word from Tim or John?
Oh, yeah. Packing up, getting ready to go home now, but okay, sounds like there's a hell of a trip. We'll see. We're good. Sun's, headed up, much of it, understand, fall. Here. 17.
Hey,
Nice to see
nice
you.
to see you.
Yeah.
And what do you do? My
I need
niece
to turn up. Perfect.
let go. I'm going upstairs.
And then
Getting from MRI.
sound prep. And this is in Newtown. This is where
Yeah, that's super.
sound. Here we go. All here. And then meeting.
Turn around.
Unite was over here. You said your son going back.
Yeah, so he's not coming over here.
Oh, I was going to say, does he want to be a harbor master?
No, he's making 28 an hour to.
Oh.
That first week.
I do not get in this way.
He's a life
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. The meeting of the Fort Getty Ad Hoc Committee for Tuesday, April 28th will come to order. Roll call. Richard Smith.
Here.
Bill Sammons is absent. Cassie West.
Here.
John Potter.
Here.
And the chair is here. Ray DeFalco.
Here.
Jim Hegney. And Nancy Latondra. Great. So the first item is old business. And we have here discussion of proposed park policies. I sent them, and I know Bill sent some, and Richard, you had sent some ideas last time. So I really wanted, the ones that I sent, I wanted to just provide time for consideration, because I think, and we'll talk about this at the next item, that it will be our next couple of meetings where we're really going through the policies and making some decisions about what we're recommending. So I just wanted to get it out there for people to have some time to reflect. Okay. And since Bill's not here, I think he was expecting the same thing. Richard, did you want to say anything about yours? So the things you sent a little while ago?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to just jump into what I had. It's easier to jump into in context. But
whatever you're comfortable with, you can do it during the workshop too, if you'd rather.
well, some of the stuff, I got to take me a second to reread
Sure.
my notes. But I had mentioned last time about prioritizing, and that's pretty basic. I think you mentioned it as well. We need to address what we can address, get done what we can get done. And then some things are put off, as we both mentioned, or is in this new pamphlet we have. That was the main thing to prioritize. And hopefully something will get done this year, this coming winter, I should say. As far as I wrote something down about maintenance, we need to continue maintenance. And I'm not talking about the maintenance we're doing now. Ray's already started a lot of it, which is great. I don't think he took it from us. I think he had it planned, but a lot of it's what we are proposing. And maybe we heard him say he was going to do it, but the paths to be open. We need to pass the bathroom. If you drive into the park, you look at the bathroom and you're wondering what the park is. You drive through the access road down to the CISF and you see the crumbled concrete. All of it doesn't bring a welcoming factor to the park. So when I say maintenance, it's some of it's over time. Some of it is we can do next year is the bathroom, remodel it. Jamestown has set standards. You can see it in everything they propose at the council, soccer fields, everything they want to do is at a higher standard. Yet Fort Getty standards are pretty low as far as the town aspect goes. People have higher aspirations for their park. So if we upgrade some of those, and it's continual maintenance, the bathrooms, even if they are upgraded, they need to be cleaned frequently. Sometimes it might be once a day, twice a day. Trash. It's not something that's picked up once every 2 days or 3 days. When the park ranger goes by, and if it's a busy weekend, they may have to take the trash 3 times a day. And once we get trash receptacles up there. As far as the concrete goes, if we were to reassign the RVs, they can start with the grassy areas and get rid of the crumbled concrete there over the one winter. The next winter, they can concentrate on another area. So all of the old concrete that's crumbling and falling away, that's what I mean by continued maintenance. And upgraded maintenance is not just, well, we do the bathrooms once a day. We mow the lawn. We mow the lawn once a week or once a month. We cut the paths in the spring and then leave it till the next year. The way the paths might have to be cut once, twice, 3 times a year, maybe to keep them accessible. So that's the kind of the continued maintenance that I was talking about, trying to bring it up to a higher standard. And then the last one, I think, was we were talking about enhancing the waterfront down towards the ramp. And some of these I want to talk when we go over the proposals. That's a sticky situation because it's very busy, as everybody says. I think we need to get a traffic control monitor, not is what I'm talking about is the sensors on the road. Since CISF is now going to have a new drop-off area, you could figure out the traffic pattern coming in up into their left, where they take the left to drop off their kids. Have another one on the other end of their property, closer to the boat ramp, to see how much traffic is really going to the ramp and how much is going to CISF, where before they probably continue straight, the parents dropping off their kids. So it'd be interesting to see how what the traffic patterns would be and how congested it would be at the ramp. As far as the kids crossing, it's on one of the drawings. Again, we could have talked about it then, but since I have it on my mind, is instead of having them cross their property and cross the street closer to the ramp, they should cross the street with a crosswalk, pretty much right outside the entrance. So they're across the street, not crossing the street at the boat ramp. That's, it makes it seem like it's safer. And then the other one was, as far as enhancing with the touch and go dock, I said that we don't need to promote anything there because people are going to increase the use on their own. The fact that it's the best ramp, you can have a trailer. CISF is growing. I'm not sure how we need to promote, but Bill's letter about the water quality, and I probably can talk about it later or now. I just had some concerns. One is I didn't agree to it. It says the Fort Getty Committee. If he wrote his own name on it, maybe I would be accepting of it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's a number C on this.
Okay.
In this business. Yeah. Those are all great. We don't have a recommendation right now focused strictly on maintenance. I think it's a good idea. Yeah. Anything else on that?
So with policies, I didn't email anything yet, but I wanted to talk about some of this. I did look at Bill's stuff, and most of what he's proposed is supported by state policies, and also Middletown policies kind of copy are reflected. So these are pretty consistent. I thought that was great. And then I went through our camping agreement, and I had some questions, and this might inform how we think about policies going forward. This is to Ray. So when somebody applies for a permit, do we just ask for this contact information, or do we gather any other information from them as part of the application process?
Are you talking about when they put in their renewal or a new seasonal?
That's correct. Yep.
Yep, we just asked for that information that's on that page there.
Okay. So Middletown does require an RV license plate and information on the application. I thought I did see somewhere, I couldn't find it, but other campgrounds require like a license, a copy of their driver's license. But I did have the experience recently of applying for a town license for an event that required alcohol, which is what you would do at the pavilion. And as part of that, you do have to do a background check, which I thought was kind of interesting. And so I kind of wonder about, if we consider doing more transitioning to more transient situation, understanding a little bit more about who the people are that are camping and living at Fort Getty, next to where we have kids camp, at camps all day, next to where we have the pavilion where people are getting married, and next to the beaches. So I think we might want to consider learning a little bit more about the people who are camping there. Under camping agreement, there's the courtesy and safety information. It says smoking. It seems like we allow smoking. It says, please be mindful of your proximity to other campers. Please refrain from smoking near the open windows or doors of adjacent campers. Middletown and the state also both do not allow smoking on public property. So they don't allow it in their campground. And I know there is a town ordinance against smoking and vaping in public areas. So I wonder if that could be reflected in some of the campground policies.
Right. So because these people are there for, multiple months, and they have their space and their inside space as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of our thought. In the greater park, it's not allowed, but in the area that they are permitted to be in, that's where they're allowed to do that.
So the town ordinance for smoking and vaping also does specify you cannot smoke or vape in a vehicle on public property. So it might be applicable. We heard a lot, well, here, I'll go in order of the, number 14, under the camping agreement, or under the Fort Getty rules, has a guest policy. We wish to welcome your guests to the park and to visit your site. Each RV site is issued 50 visitor passes for the season. Is that right? Do campers typically use these 50 or?
I would say they do not typically expend all 50 of their passes.
Okay. Do you know how many maybe a camper might use?
I'd have to get back to you. I don't have a number like off the top of my head of average.
So each day pass is $20. And so 50 visitor passes at $20 each is $1,000 value we're giving to each site. So that's like a perk of camping, and we should be aware of that.
Cassie, in your benchmarking, did you notice what other policies are at other places on something like
I
that?
do have that. I don't think the state would have that many because the turnover is, every 2 weeks. So it would be much,
I was thinking more like Middletown, if they had a visitor.
yeah, they must have.
And maybe it's something like you get a certain number, but then you can purchase
Oh, I haven't.
after. You don't have to look now.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Oh, here. Well, they do, they limit occupancy to the site for which you are signed and is limited and registered tenants they do specify, and their parents, children, and grandchildren are allowed there. Yeah, I'll have to figure this out, but anyway, we did hear a lot about dogs at Fort Getty, and this is kind of, some of it's off leash use, but number 18, we do allow pets. Middletown does not, but I saw that there was the pet registration form. It says that proof of vaccination may be asked, but do you require it?
We require that they are vaccinated and they have those documents ready in case there's an incident.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then that was it, I think I had. Okay.
John, anything?
Did you want to actually go through all of these things and choose them today?
No. No. So what I had said at the beginning is that I shared some just to be able to provide them. Well, I had the time for one thing, and I wanted to just provide them ahead of time. And so if we're done with that item, we can talk about.
I have a few questions.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't jump the gun. In the discussion, the draft that you put forward about
Speak into your microphone. Sorry.
RV camper reservations and access, it struck me that reserving some part of the campgrounds for transients is actually quite separate from a discussion about seasonal length policies. And although we have talked about the notion of, moving to full transient, I think this committee has never really centered on that. It's not a viable consideration in our eyes. So it just strikes me that I saw the three options that were here, and it struck me that we could actually talk about, what share of camping spaces should be dedicated to transients, what policies around transients, completely separate from how do we think about how we issue seasonal passes and all those things. I think there is an option we didn't really talk about, or which actually isn't drafted here, which is simply having some sort of, call it term limits. You could run the same policy, the same practice we have today, but simply say that after 10 years, you time out and you have to kind of go get back in the queue, or some modification of that. Be a very simple system. it would drive a little bit more churn. I mean, the figures around 2026 suggest that, we're not going to have much of a waiting list at the end of once the season clears. Actually, I think there was some data due to come in on the 24th, so you might be able to tell us in a second what the real waiting list status is. But my point is, I think I would like to
Yeah.
throw that on
I'm sure there's multiple variations of these options that I threw out. These are the things that I was hearing, and I needed to put them in writing to kind of get my head around what they were trying to do.
Understand.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not for them all.
I'm simply saying,
Yeah.
I would draft item D and pop it on the list.
Okay.
The one thing I didn't understand about option B is how it generates exits. I understand it has an idea of carving up the space for campers of different tenures, but if the challenge is making sure that there's a bit of flow so that more people can get access over time, it wasn't obvious to me how we create exits.
Yeah, I think my thinking was that just by having a limit on the number of legacy, and opening up another portion and tiering them, basically. But it could be flawed logic.
Okay.
and I'm welcome to.
I think
you
it just
editing.
requires some way of clearing that space if it's full, right?
Yeah.
I think the only other policy, is it a policy? Is it not a policy? I mean, I've mentioned this before. I think that I'd like to make sure that we figure out how to provide bathrooms for more of the year than what's available today. And I'll just second Rich's remarks about maintenance. And I think, in fact, when you see a lot of the input that we get from letters, I mean, there's ambition for beautification. Beautification isn't a one-time thing with landscape and living, right? And so I just second Rich's point there.
Great. So, again, this was kind of queuing up what we know is going to be the bulk of our work. And we'll be talking about, how we want to think about that. I don't know that we will be able to have the change of dates that I was proposing, but so the next item is a discussion of the preliminary draft. So I sent out a draft report, and it's focused primarily on the work we've already done. So what the findings of basically the early phases of our work, and leaving only in a really rough outline form the proposed recommendations. So you can give edits today on the draft report. We don't have to spend our time doing that. I think we'd probably rather do that, spend our time with Eric. But what I'm thinking, and this is open for conversation, is that before the next meeting, I've already started kind of drafting the areas that I think there's general agreement around the recommendations. They're not too controversial among us. There are some that are going to take a lot more discussion and debate, and we'll have to figure out how to get to some final something for the report. But I thought I would provide that kind of a whole document, maybe in two parts, like the front part you've already seen, and then a separate part that's just all about from the principles on. And that you can provide, as we talked about last time, either mark that up in Word, like we'll give you the Word document, mark it up, get it to, we'll need some direction about who to get that to because Cody is out. So Ray, you can tell us who the best person is to get those edits to. And then the idea would be hopefully get those edits prior to our next meeting. We'd have a full compilation of all the markups of this group. And we just work through it and we vote. And we have to make some decisions, like there may be 3 to 2 votes, there may be 2 to 1, I don't know, we'll see. But hopefully we'll work through most of it and then move to a final set of recommendations. How's that sound?
Good.
Yes.
Excellent. Great. So I will get you tomorrow a draft and just mark the hell out of it.
Sorry, is it different from the one that we got in the pack?
Yes.
Okay.
It's all of them. So it's working through all of at the end of the draft report, there's 11, I think, recommendations.
Yeah.
So I'll add one on maintenance. I'm not putting in anything about what we're going to work through with Eric. I think that
fine.
how we finalize those will determine the language, but the other ones.
Got it.
Okay. And then the question is, I know that Eric is not available on May 5th, which was the date that we had planned for our next meeting. And I think it's important that he's there. I don't know, May 7th, I know doesn't work for John.
Check.
Okay. Does May 7th work for you guys?
Yeah.
Great. And then our next meeting is the 19th. And so I'm hoping that through those 2 meetings, we can just get it done. But we may need one more meeting in June. But we're going to meet that June deadline. Okay. Anything more on that? Great. All right, the next item is the letter that Bill Salmon submitted about the touch and go dock. So we talked about this last time. Okay, do you want to talk? So this was on the agenda last time. And Jim, you presented to us that it really was kind of a moot point. You had your own process going on and there wasn't anything for us to do at the time. So I didn't say what I was going to say at that time, which is we're an ad hoc committee of the town council. We don't really have standing to be weighing in on something for the town, that we could certainly suggest to the town council that they make known a position or opinion, but it seemed way beyond our scope.
Madam Chair, thank you. I would agree. I had initially asked whether or not it would benefit my endeavors to move forward with a touch and go dock, and if the ad hoc committee would support that. And I too learned that it was outside of the scope of this committee. All that said, while I appreciate Bill's desire, it falls well outside of the areas of support that the Conservation Commission has provided, along with the details that CRMC has provided to myself in order for us to perhaps be successful with the touch and go dock.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments? Great, okay. Next item is new business, and I asked Ray to come just talk to us about how it's looking for the season ahead.
Thank you. So an update for the 2026 RV reservation wait lists, just to give everyone some like top level information about the wait list this year. We had 19 wait list members, and the wait list closed on January 2nd. 9 of the seasonal sites opened in 2026, so we had 9 sites to fill. 7 of 9 have been assigned. Actually, it's now, as of today, 8 of 9 have been assigned to seasonals. So there's 1 remaining site. We have 2 offers out, and we had a deadline of 4/24. So there is still the 1 site remaining. 5 declined from the wait list for various reasons. 3 were unresponsive to offers. We reached out to these people. These people all paid the $25 to be on the wait list. And we reached out, and it's interesting to see people declining and not responsive to offers. But there was no Jamestown residents this year on the wait list for seasonals. The transient wait list, we had 16 members when the wait list closed on January 2nd. 4 waitlist members appeared on both the transient and the seasonal list, and all 4 of the members that were on the seasonal list were assigned to new seasonal sites. 6 transient stays have been reserved from the list. Now, today, that's 7. 3 members declined the transient site for various reasons. It didn't work out with their schedule, or their RVs not working or whatever it may be. And so we are still waiting. We have 2 people still on the list with offers out to try to fill some of those gaps that we have. And one of the accepted offers is a Jamestown resident for the transient wait list.
Great. When you say various reasons, any
Yeah.
that you can share?
So I know one person had mentioned they didn't think they would come up. They were like, we didn't think we've been on the wait list for 3 years. We didn't think we come up this year. And they did. So they were kind of not prepared. I think they were just trying to get on that wait list thinking maybe it'll be a 4 or 5 year wait. So it was kind of one of those situations. That's the one that sticks out in my head. The other ones of people who declined, either the dates didn't work, like the transient wait list. When people decline, it's, we had already filled most of the popular weeks. Oh, and some people didn't read the directions. We have a 2-week minimum, and they only wanted a weekend, that kind of thing. There was a few of those, but they were kind of all over the place with the reasoning behind it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Any questions for Ray? Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next item is public comments, and we have one scheduled. Chris Cannon. Hi, Chris.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
Will there be other people allowed to speak that didn't sign up in advance?
Yes, yep.
Good, good. Well, thanks again for all your efforts and the minutia that you all have to deal with here. It would be making my head explode if I had to do that. But, and I went through the draft report, and the percentages quoted from the 1,069 residents could easily be mistaken and misconstrued as this person, Jill Harrison, or somebody who's a person wrote in a very eloquent letter. It's a little over my head actually to get it. But again, if somebody said, 73% of the respondents said, bloop, 8 out of 10 people would say, oh my God, that's 73% of all of Jamestown or something. And it's just hard to get. So I would suggest you use her letter to go through and clear the air on that, because just to be objective. And I don't understand why there's nothing in the report about returning the park to all of the community of Jamestown. I mean, I didn't see a lick of information there in all 108 pages, pictures, everything. It's kind of astounding, actually. Just RV discussions about enhancing the camping experience. The RV groups, again, has 50 years of usage, enjoyment, and they probably made a lot of memories for that. The next 50 years, I believe, as a resident, should be for the people of the town of Jamestown to do the same. But instead, there's more verbiage in the report discussing the next 20 years of RVs. And again, I don't have any problem with RVs at all. I just think they should not be center stage in Jamestown's only park. I did like Principle 4 on page 39 stating, let revenue serve the park, not drive it. I don't see that has much importance in the report, though. It all seemed to be about the money, I guess, or the fact that the folks have been here 50 years. Regarding the acreage allocation, it seemed to me that the bulk of the 3 acres for the roads, some of it should be added into the 6-ish acres for the RVs, because it's right in the middle of their footprint. And I don't know how that was measured or not, but it seems fair that, because they take up major space in that place. And in January, I mailed, a very long email with all of my blah, blah, blah. And I didn't seem, and I'm going back now to the report. And there was a lot, I went through like 300 or 400 comments in section 25 or what that was. And I might have seen one couple of lines of all the blah, blah, blah I put in there, but it didn't seem to make the cut as to what would be added or not added. And I was curious about that. And I got to say, again, it was a bit disturbing that it seems no discussions regarding the park's future for the town's resident, and not the 75 RVs are in the park. I mean, And the RVs, God bless them, they're paying $50 a night to be in the park. That's it. It's $50. It's a hell of a deal. But it just seems like this whole thing is possibly just going to be the can and get kicked down the road again. And for a lot of people, the RV situation's the elephant in the living room that, you know, people are reticent to talk about. And what I did, had a photographer come and take a drone shot of the park. And then, excuse me, one of our folks jumped on ChatGPT. So, picture here is current. This picture is a dream.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I feel like we've seen versions of these. They look like versions of things we've seen.
Probably half of this is me growing up in a 30 by 100 plot in Jamaica, Queens, and having no parks. But I don't have to get involved in this thing at all. You know, at age I could check out. It just seems that this magical little town we have here deserves a park where people can walk waterfront walks all the time too. I mean, it's just spectacular. And a lot of people just won't go there right now. So anyhow,
Thank you.
this is not a discussion, I guess.
No, it's not a
It's
discussion.
just a spew. Okay.
It's just comments. So people bring comments and it's not a question and answer period. Okay. I will say that if it's not clear that because we are a public body, all of our work is done in public. So the draft of the report you see is literally that. It's a draft that hasn't been vetted or contributed to by others completely. So there is a whole section that actually Cassie West is going to be working on about comments that we've received and summarizing those. So so go ahead.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Chris Bulger,
Address.
34 Well Rock Road, my wife and I live on. I think I'm going to echo some of Chris's comments. I've gotten up before and stood before this, and I understand you guys are doing tremendously hard work. So this is not personal, but I think I personally and a number of the folks that I've chatted with share a concern that the general discussion around Fort Getty has been incomplete both in terms of embracing what there are comments in the draft, and I appreciate that it is just a draft, but comments in the draft that speak to what the residents of Jamestown really want. And I think there are issues both with the survey. I think there's issues with the way the financial town meeting was run that didn't really explore what the residents of Jamestown would be interested in. And I think there's an onus to try and open the door wider when, you know, the RV, look, I understand why the RV community feels very strongly. They have a crown jewel of Jamestown and they have it at a very appealing rate. And I would be well organized and feel very strongly about keeping it if the town gave me an asset like that. And it's very likely that the 2,800 households are not as well organized or thinking about what's possible. So I therefore think it's incumbent on a process like this to not quickly close the door on other alternatives, but in fact, broadcast what could be possible to really understand what the community could benefit from. And again, I feel very strongly in the power of parks and what they can do to build communities, what they can do to make communities attractive to young families. And while our current group has a lot of blue hairs or no hairs like me, we have more young families who are recognizing this could be a tremendous asset for attracting young families to Jamestown. And I'm concerned that the financial conversation similarly has been narrow based at least on what I've seen, that if we were really putting the 2,800 households of Jamestown as taxpayers first and foremost, we'd be looking harder at rent. We'd already be charging for water and electricity. You don't need meters to do that. Just divide the bill by the number of lots and charge them. We don't give water or electricity away to the taxpayers of Jamestown. Why we give it away to RVs is confusing to me. So I feel that that conversation also hasn't been as wide ranging. And I understand there are limits in this group's charter, and I don't mean to suggest anything, any ill intention here. Again, I think this bias is natural when there is a well-organized group that have an established incredible benefit, that it would be a louder voice, better thought through, and the status quo is often the more comfortable outcome as well. So it takes a lot of energy to explore what's possible. But in that regard, we've organized a community group, Friends of Fort Getty Park, because we have found, at least through informal conversations that are going to get much more formal, that there are many people who would like a broader conversation as taxpayers and as residents on how the park's used. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Patsy?
Patsy Eldridge, 138 Narragansett Ave, Unit 6. I submitted a letter in today's meeting packet, and I told you there that I have a marine and home sewing business on North Road, and I'm also a science curriculum writer, and I'm a longtime science educator, and I have done teacher training for a long, long time. And I'm telling you that because my perspective on some things that I'd like to share with you comes from a lifelong desire to base decisions and plans on evidence. So we had a couple of comments just now that I would have to disagree with. I am a camper. I'm going into my 5th season as an RV camper at Fort Getty. And there's a few things, as I looked over your draft report, I thought I would just give a few perspectives on evidence that I saw in the data that was available in the report and how that might affect some of the things that you put together in the coming weeks. So first of all, there was, and I told you about the science teacher thing because you're going to think I'm geeking out on some of this, but the 10+ year wait list, that's a perception, and that's outdated. If you take a look at the data that was in the packet, if you take that length of stay data, I just went back to 2021. I didn't really feel like I needed to go back more than 5 or 6 years. But if you take 2026 and subtract the number of years of tenure for each site, in the past years since 2021, the number of sites opening to new campers was 7, 9, 3, 2, 7, and 9. And then if you do an average on that, it's about 6 families a year. And if you want to talk about churn, that's natural churn. Nobody ever said they had to leave or anything. That was just a normal turnover. And then, of course, you just got the report this year that everybody virtually everybody that wanted a site got one. And so if you would consider going back through your draft proposal, and as you're updating it, if you could consider saying a 0 to 3 year average waiting is what's modern now. It's what's been happening in the past 5 or 6 years. And that's an important trend to consider, because I think a lot of, well, it says right in the report, critics argue that a 10+ year waiting list, that's just not happening anymore. Times have changed in many, many ways. The second thing was, I do not see evidence at all in the meeting packet data that supports reducing the number of sites that we currently have. So some of the data that I looked at was, as someone else mentioned, the 6 acres, that's about 14%. If you're going to take, and reduce what we have now to about 50 sites and make them larger, I don't know exactly what that's going to do to the footprint, but my logic tells me that it's probably at the most going to reduce it by a couple of acres and take that percentage from 14 to 11. And to me, displacing 23 families for that when so much of the park is already open space doesn't make any sense. The survey, which I don't have any reason not to think that the results are reliable. I don't have any indication otherwise. I have to accept that they are reliable. 64% of the respondents want to maintain or increase the number of sites. That's data. In addition, only 9% named open space as a top improvement priority. And I'm going to say that's not because people don't want open space. That's because they feel there's enough open space at the park as it is. And then, of course, the financial town meeting, which again, I have to take the voting record as reliable from that meeting, was an overwhelming majority that said we would like to support a bond to upgrade electric and restrooms for 75 sites or the existing sites. A further reduction, we've already lost 10 sites somehow over the past few years. So we're from 83 down to 73 now. I thought it was 75. Now I'm told we have 73. So it's the incredible shrinking campground. And a further reduction from that is not supported by the evidence that's in the packet that I read. The third thing was, there's a claim out there that Fort Getty rates are below market. And someone made a comment that, well, $52 a night is a good deal. Well, I have to say that our budget, my husband is coming back out of retirement. He went into retirement, he's out, he's back in. $52 a night for 4.5 months is a big chunk of our budget. So please don't think that we're getting some kind of big bargain. And here's data to back that up. Second Beach runs May 1st through October 12th for 164 nights at $8,800. That's $54 a night. Fort Getty runs May 21 through September 21. That's 123 nights. At a rate of non-residents $63.50, that's $52 per night. So a $2 difference between Fort Getty and Second Beach Campground shows me that that rate is squarely in the market. Because, let's remember, Second Beach has sewer hookups, Fort Getty doesn't. Also, well, of course, we all know currently the electric, the water, and the restrooms are deplorable. So a $2 difference in those two puts us squarely in the market. And I would really encourage you to think about that, the comments that are in the report that say that we're below market value. I know you have other, thoughts on that you might, want to say, but that's just what the data supports. Thank you guys so much for all you're putting into this process. Fort Getty matters to me. It matters to a lot of people. The RV part, especially to me, since I'm an RV camper, and I love it there. The community is fantastic. And I just hope that as you move forward with your recommendations that you consider evidence-based planning. And I think that's one everybody can stand behind. Thank you.
Thank you. How many people are interested in speaking today? Can I just see 1, 2, 3? Okay. I'm just going to ask that you be as concise as possible, only because we have limited time with our... Okay, yeah, it's nice to see you, Plan.
For the rest of the meetings. Blaine Lippincott, 1243 North Main. I'll submit this formally for inclusion in the next packet with photos. I brought some photos. I didn't bring one for each of you because I ran out of ink. Thank you for your time and work on this. The norm for a major design proposal is to do in-depth interviews and observations of the user experience. That does not seem to have been done at Fort Getty, so I'm going to provide my observations of how people actually use the park, having lived at Fort Getty full-time for 20 months with additional visits off-season. Note that I have RV'd across the country 3 times, ranging from Northern Illinois to Phoenix, Arizona, Southern Florida, and the states in between. I'm going to address the plan that appears to be favored by the architect within the broader theme of increased access that has been the rallying cry of RV opponents the past 20 years. Specifically, I'm going to show you why proposals to raise the rates of RV camping so that revenue level is maintained so that locals can have more access is improper. First, the RVs are property taxpayers. The definition of tax from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, which judges use, is a charge usually of money imposed by authority on persons or property for public purposes. Taxpayer is one that pays or is liable for a tax. RVers pay the town to live on the town's property. It is reasonable to call this a property tax. As you've heard before, the RV fees are the equivalent of the property tax payment of 73 homes now? $73 million homes on just 6 or 7 acres. Therefore, the RVers, to be fair, should be treated equitably and be subject to a cap of 4% increase in rates each year, just like everybody else, especially like summer people who own land here but only live here during the warm season. Locals wail that we don't pay taxes and are getting something for nothing. Meanwhile, we're paying 75 to 80%, 85% of the costs of maintaining parks and rec across the island. I really hope you guys try to educate people on this matter who don't realize that we actually fund year-round parks and rec. Please educate them. Second, the RV rates should be going down, not up, because the town keeps giving the RVs less and less while charging them more and more. One, the season keeps getting shorter by month now, with an even shorter season proposed, and is shorter than the seasons of the other cited campgrounds. Picnic tables were removed. I keep bringing this up, it's a big deal. It is rare for a campground not to have picnic tables for the obvious reason that they are too big for us to carry around. And the whole point of RVing is to live outdoors. Even Fisherman's Memorial State Park has picnic tables, fire rings, and grates. If you go to a more transient RV model, the town would have to provide picnic tables. The whole point of RV living is to live outside. Someone told me how sad my site looked last year because I didn't have a picnic table, and it actually kept me from entertaining anybody at all, because I don't have room to store one off-site. The town does less mowing and trimming than it used to, so RVers are now buying their own lawnmowers and trimmers to ensure that their sites look tidy. If the town can't maintain the park as it is, how is it going to maintain the fancy plantings in the proposal? They can't even maintain the landscaping around the pavilion. You're comparing the RV rates to campgrounds that have clean water. This is what the water looks like sometimes, and if I showed you the video, it's much brown. I didn't bring the photograph of the brown water in the toilets when that occurs. I mentioned this problem to Public Works and was told to give them a call and that they would clear it up. Well, by that point, my $200 of water filters have been ruined. I spent at least $500 a season on water filters. Many campers refuse to cook or drink with the town's water. At $2 a gallon, you can imagine the cost over the summer. This clean water cost should be added to the tax and our expenses camping over the summer. It's a real cost. And there's no plan anywhere I see for cleaning up the water.
Can you tell me, do you have a lot more, Flan? I know you've said some of these things before, and I just want to make sure you're focusing on the things you haven't.
Yeah,
talked about
I've
before.
got something coming up about the plans.
Okay, and there's a couple of more people, and we
Okay.
need to get to our workshop.
Okay.
So.
You're comparing the RV rates to campgrounds that have full hookups, gray water and sewer. This is a big deal. Holding tanks, gray water holding tanks are typically about 30 gallons. I can use 30 for the week to cook, clean, wash everything. I only have 30 of these. When you're at home and you're running your water while you're brushing your teeth, while you're taking a shower, pasta, this is all I can really do before I've filled up my holding tank. And I have to wait. I either have to pack up my trailer and move it, to dump the tanks every week, or have Cody come. I can't do it myself because one car doesn't have the hitch and my truck is too tall and the caddy keeps falling off. Huge inconvenience. And campgrounds that don't have full hookups, typically those rates are about the same as tent camping. So our rate is certainly not too high for the little that we get. Now, the third reason why RV rates should remain as they are or increase by no more than 4% has to do with CISF. I want to make it clear that I've never commented on the substantive nature of CISF programs or its goals. I've been to its fundraisers and am friends, or have been friends, with its supporters. I've only made observations related to safety, use, and improprieties on the part of the town council in the selection process of the AHC members. Camp looks like great fun, and I'm all for free-range childhoods. However, I've never seen a camp of any kind, private or municipal, where the boundaries of the camp are not defined by a fence. This should be obvious. It keeps kids safe from strangers, from vehicles, from dogs, and the like.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, Flan. And you're going to be submitting this for the record, which is great.
I will, okay. Briefly, this fall, CISF had a tent, boats and campers all playing on the very north end of the island, outside of the bounds.
Thank you.
Of their lease. And on the red X, they've now moved that, and you can't use it when the kids are playing. You can't use the space wherever the kids are, and they're totally unbounded. They're everywhere. That tent has been moved to a place marked in an X that is not part of the CISF boundaries. CISF is not respecting the boundaries. It's not respecting the lease. And why isn't it being enforced? Wonder if it gets around, the town doesn't enforce its contracts. And so to close, I think the committee should look at requiring the foundation have clear fences of where their boundaries are. Because the plan proposed by the architects are also the same architects who are doing the plans for the Sailing Foundation. Went right to 63 spots, not what the majority voted for, the 73 spots, but he went right to the 63 spot plan. And the first thing that I noticed, and a lot of people noticed, is he cleared the whole north end of the island, north and northwest, for CISF expansion. I suspect, I'm gonna get a lot of, well, I've already been, I suspect that there is an understanding between CISF, architects, and town council that eventually CISF is going to take over the whole north end of the island. That's fine, but if that, whatever people want, but if that's the case, the committee needs to know that, and the Sailing Foundation needs to operate in the light, because a lot of their stuff has been kind of pushed through. A lot of people aren't aware of, and there are complaints about the buildings and how their expansion, their campus is bigger than what was presented initially, et cetera.
Okay.
So,
all right, thank you. Appreciate it. I think we have two more, and I'm going to ask you to keep your remarks to 3 minutes. Sorry about that. Go ahead. Steve, is that right?
Steve Meredith, 881 Fort Getty Road. I submitted a letter that's in your materials.
Yeah,
I'm not going to talk about that letter other than to say I'm very disappointed that the Bill Salmon's proposal didn't find its way into any of the schematics that Beta is considering, because I think that is probably the best balance of various competing interests in this whole process. So I'd just like you to take a close look at that. One just aside, in looking at the materials that were sent out for this meeting, I found the most interesting thing in the whole package, the seniority study, to see how many people, and it's the good news, bad news. Good news is a lot of people have been using Fort Getty forever. The bad news is it seems that that forever is so long that they must be handing them down to family members. I don't understand how someone could be a camper for 56 years. Maybe there actually is, you know, an 80 or 90-year-old person camping there. But if there is a policy of handing down campsites from generation to generation or to other family members without going through the waitlist process, I think that's just wrong. No matter where you come out on lotteries or allocations or things like that, I just think that's wrong. The real thing I want to talk about today is something that I sent in too late for it to be included in today's package. And it's a concern that I have about electrical capabilities for the park. And this comes out of discussions I've had with one of my neighbors who was trying to install a bunch of solar panels a couple of years ago. And the solar company, who stood to make money by selling my neighbor solar panels, said that he couldn't have as many solar panels as he wanted to install because the line running from Beavertail to Fort Getty is at or near full capacity and could not take the load that those additional solar panels would provide. I don't know that anybody has run to ground the question of whether that line needs to get replaced, upgraded, and all the related transmission stuff. What I did do, I consulted my best friend, ChatGPT, and put some queries in, asking for, you know, what the process is and things around that, and what a reasonable cost would be for running, you know, if you had to run a new line 3/4 of a mile to the park. And that is included in this letter I sent the committee late last week, too late to be included in the materials. But I have the whole ChatGPT report in there, and it concluded that if there was a need for so-called upstream upgrading, the estimated cost would run between a low point of $700,000 or a high point of $2 million. Just for that upgrade. That's not work inside the park. That's getting electricity to the park. In asking ChatGPT, well, who pays for that? The question it says, and this is ChatGPT, so, you know, hallucination.
And I'm going to ask you to move along.
Okay.
Wrap it up. Okay, sorry.
In any event, it said that that's a matter of negotiation. It depends upon who benefits from it. If it's the user requesting it. I also did a similar analysis for what it would just cost to do the pedestal upgrade on 75 contiguous sites in the park. And the answer came back $1.25 million to $2.25 million. The bond is for $500,000. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Dan. I'm also going to ask you to keep it to 2 to 3 minutes, please.
Emily, 231 Seaside.
Thank you.
Okay, two things quickly. And then I didn't want to actually speak today, but I did come in and I hear all of the conversation about we don't believe that the survey was right. We don't believe that the town financial meeting was right. I mean, how many times, you know, we've gone through this many, many times. How many times are we going to ask the same question and come up with another reason why we didn't get the answer that we wanted? First point. Second is I don't agree with the idea of creating churn in a campground. As someone who is on island, I like community. I don't like people coming in and taking pictures of my neighborhood all the time, coming in from New York in their Airbnbs. Why would we take people out and bring new people in that haven't been creating problems and have created a community for themselves? It doesn't seem to make any sense.
Thank you. Thank you. Hannah.
Hannah Sweat, 34 Emerson Road. Just want to comment on a few things that were said. CISF has a very defined lease. I'd be happy to go through it with anyone. We have shared space and we have primary space of use. Yes, our tent was moved to a few locations, and that was absolutely approved by the town, by Ray. Every time we move anything, we do it in communication with the town. In terms of children moving around, they're always with a counselor, very well supervised. And we have shared space, which is a larger area where they're allowed to be at, always with a counselor. And furthermore, our architect is Union Studios. They have been our sole architect the entire time. I don't think they're part of this planning process. And in the past, RV campers have attended CISF, and they are always welcome in the future.
Thank you, Hannah. Anyone else? Great, thank you. Thank you all. Okay, the next item is acknowledgement of communications received. We received communications from Kathleen Brown, Garrett Buckland, Mary Maha, Marion Fala, Patsy Eldridge, and Jeff Oppenheim, and Steve Meredith. Do I have a motion to accept the communications received? Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Richie Smith,
Aye.
Cassie West,
Aye.
John Potter.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, the next item is, we already talked about basically, which is we're looking into moving our meeting from May 5th to May 7th, and we will confirm that when we know that if it's possible. And if not, we may just go to the May 19th meeting. So I don't think if we can't do the 7th, we're not going to look for another date. We're going to stick with the 19th and then look for a date in June. Okay, but we will let you know. Okay, I think. Is that it? Okay, so the next item is going into a work session with Beta. So we'll give you a minute to do what we need to do.
Here's my mic right here. Oh.
Done that.
Check. Check.
Yeah, he's on.
Check. Check, 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 check. Checked.
am sharing screen and then. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm okay. Yeah.
We can do that. I'll use the easel too as well. So I thought, hello everyone. I thought we'd just kind of flip through where we were with what we were calling sort of the series 2, which you saw that get released. And at the last session, we essentially made some edits and we came up with what we're calling the series 3. So we can jump into those and I'll walk you through a couple options.
Okay. Up. Okay. We go. Okay. Thanks, sir.
So all these concepts, assume that RV camping continues with the goal of freeing up or creating more green space around the perimeter at the edges of the park. And that tent camping is consolidated down to the area by the gatehouse. So we're taking that work that we did previously and kind of advancing it forward. And I know Bill's not here, but he had put sort of some ideas together around the concept of 50 RVs in the campsite with more green space to the north. This isn't exactly his plan. His sketch is in this package. But this is one of the concepts we walked away with, is sort of consolidating down into that center space, essentially with 50 RVs. Perimeter loop road around the side, parking, green space to the west and green space to the north. And this one we called 3.1.
I just want to say that because it was also raised in public comment and because we've heard a lot from Bill about this, that my understanding, and I think our understanding has generally been that our conversations about options happen here in public session, primarily during these workshops. And we've been afforded a landscape architect to help us think through. We may have great ideas that he will say, well, this is what's required to do that. I mean, he brings his practical expertise and experience and knowledge to our process. And so nobody is getting their design drawn for them. We're discussing our concepts and ideas here, trying to come up with some generally agreed upon, we may not reach general agreement, and then guided by Beta, developing options that seem feasible. So that's my understanding. Okay, so go ahead, Eric.
Sure. And just Bill and I have had a couple of different email exchanges on his ideas. And as I said, a lot of his ideas are encapsulated in this concept sketch, not every single one, but a lot of his concepts are relayed here. So any question or discussion about sort of what a 50 unit layout looks like for the RVs? And the green space is just kind of represented broadly. I think we'll be talking about that a little bit later in terms of connectivity and engaging and reforestation of areas and what can happen in the green space. This is just sort of to organize a discussion on circulation and RV layout.
I have questions about the parking. So the overflow parking's there, and then there's 36 parking spaces. Is that just to add more parking to that area?
Right. So the thought is that would be for guests of the RVs.
Okay. And then
This 100 is plus or minus, depending if, from what I understand about the restroom facility, a probable site for the filtration field is here. So the number of cars is a little bit elastic depending on the size of the restroom field. There'll be an area that we won't be able to park on, down below.
But this 36 was associated with guest spaces.
And then in the other renderings that we've thought about, there was not specific, like there was, the overflow parking would have been where RV guests could have parked, I think. Is that?
I think we're maybe moving in a direction where it makes sense to have RV visitor parking adjacent to the RVs. Again, this idea of, as a committee, there's been a lot of discussion about making the edge more accessible to public and consolidating the community of campers to the center. And so keeping that parking nearby and contiguous if we can, or at least adjacent, isn't a bad approach. And this is more towards sort of line of sight from the overflow to the pavilion. You know, so if it's for an event, you know, pedestrians are going to be walking along this edge and just kind of keeping it visually and sort of physically connected as much as possible to those amenities to the south.
So I have another question about parking though, too. Is it, we haven't really talked about the beach, but is it possible to add parking along the beach area there? There's already like that pull-in space. Yeah, there's 2 spaces there. Two, yeah.
Oh, at Battery Whiting?
No, the other end, like towards the pavilion. So the pavilion and then there's the beach. And then you can pull in where, oh, sorry, Battery Whiting. Yes.
Yes, yeah, which you see as you come through the gates.
Right, yes.
There's a couple pull-ins. Yeah, we could look at that more closely and see what's possible. It's pretty informal, but maybe that's.
Because there is vegetation there, but yeah, just.
Yeah,
adding
clearing of
more
vegetation
parking.
wouldn't be possible, but being more efficient about it or organizing it a little bit, you know, maybe you could fit more spaces just by organizing it.
Right, okay.
Conceptually, we talked a little bit about circulation at the last meeting and how the flow might work. So there's a couple of features that we started to draw. One of which is, and I don't know if the geometry quite looks like this, we'll take a look at it more closely, but the idea of being able to turn around completely at the north end of the park. It's challenging for people that are coming down here, if they haven't made the turn to drop off at CISF in this direction, which we talked about the last meeting, sort of making this left and making a drop-off site work with the CIS facility. At least they can come down and have a full turnaround, whether it's an actual circle. We talked about sort of safety and the ability to cross. But geometrically, it's really tight right now to be able to make that turn. If someone's made the mistake and missed this, they end up into a sort of 3-point turn or some kind of configuration that's challenging with boat trailers and so on. So making the ability to fully loop around, and they are set up and could drop off at this side as well. And then the goal here is to work on the alignment, the boat ramp, make it easier to back down in. We talked about this at the last session. And then looking at, can we provide truck and trailer parking along this outer edge? The idea of sort of a one-way circulation loop. The road is going to function as 2 ways, but for boats and trailers, we think it would be logical to send them up this way, sort of line of sight to the ramp, provide parking. We think it works on the outside. It would be a reinforced turf, so it's not a paved strip, but it's a turf grass strip that in the off season is just green and open, but allows several, I think between 8 and 10 boats and trailers, trucks and trailers to fit around this curve. And the benefit of that is not having necessarily boat, trailer, truck and trailer parking in this space to the north. If we needed overflow, I think that could be done by sort of organizing this with maybe some simple fencing, planting to allow, say on a weekend, a big event, something's going on, we think we're going to need more truck and trailer parking. But sort of hate to turn out all over to vehicles and other activities. And then the traffic movement for trucks and trailers would be coming through, down, and then making this turn back to the north to be able to return to the ramp and back in. There's options too, as far as just the RV boat trailer parking on this side as continues now to the east. And then looking at, can we slide and stack some boat trailer, truck and trailer parking in this area as well. We have to look at the clearances a little more closely, but allowing for, if a vehicle loops around, there is no parking here, the ability to back into some spaces along this edge. And you can see I kind of hold this at a diagonal because I think the way we're going to get
Those existing concrete pads there,
they're more here to this side.
yeah, we'd need, the only way you could get a truck and trailer in on any of those sites drawn would be a diagonal.
Yeah.
That would be pretty severe unless you're able to add to the decking.
Yeah,
parking.
we won't be able to expand towards the coastal, towards a feature of the salt marsh, but we would be a flat, they'd be sort of a flat or diagonal. And again, where that's kind of coupled with whatever capacity you can develop, out of for boat, for truck and trailer.
Question on the parking. Wanted to move on the north side of the road they have now. What about the area that they're parking trucks and trailers that's north of here? Trucks and trailers parked there in that overflow. Yeah, what's gonna happen since you don't have it there? What's gonna happen there?
Well, I think it's gonna be opened up programmatically for other things, whether we use, someone suggested earlier, fencing or landscaping or some kind of definition might be useful there to sort of say, this is where we want vehicles to park. I think adding congestion and just visual, the visual aspects of the trucks and the trailers at that location, maybe isn't something we need to do. If we can find a better way that with flow to stack them, it's easier to sort of pull in and pull out. The conflict with people using the ramp and the sailing school is maybe reduced by not having those vehicles, right up against that use. So we're trying to spread them out a little bit more on the perimeter. I think that one of the things we're doing is we're trying to eliminate this road potentially. So we're sort of pulling everything in a little bit. So we're going to try to gain some space on that northern edge. And while I think that you can feel some compression there, there is still the footpath, there is still a way for pedestrians to get by. It's not like it closes it off so pedestrians can't get past.
Yeah, not much parking on the north side of the road. It's by altering the campsites and everything, we're opening up that land to the north there. It seemed, why would we take truck and trailer away from where they park now in the lower, it's the northeast corner? And I know if the road's circular, it's less of a way to get in there, but that's a small parcel to try to figure out what to use, where you're parking on a large parcel, it's more of a park setting. Seems like we would keep the trucks and trailers more towards that congested area, keep the upper half open to pedestrians and walkers and dog type flyers, instead of opening that up to parking, keep the parking overflow, which is kind of similar to the shared parking with CISF. I can't tell on this diagram, but I know where it is, Taylor Point, or Getty.
Right.
Yeah, it's right in there.
Right, there's a flex. There's a flex space as part of
Right.
that use, which
But
is.
right now, the overflow truck and trailer parked there. Down in that lower left-hand corner, next to the road, they park across the street from there. But I have a little bit of an issue if we're going to open up land for public use and then turn it into a parking lot on the weekend.
Yeah,
That's,
I agree.
it seems contradictory to what we're trying to do. I keep it close to the rear because that's overflow parking as well for CISF or overflow use. So I just have a problem moving it up to open land that we are opening.
I also wondered if we would ever want to explore, again, just an idea of swapping that shared space. CISF we may be able to have a conversation and say, would you be interested in having your shared space be to the west as opposed to where it is now and using that, yeah.
This is the flex, just so we make sure.
Right.
So this is area,
Right.
area B, which is a flex space.
Right.
So you're saying maybe.
Have it go, yes,
something
yeah,
above.
yeah. If that were, I mean, I know that it's not as close to the water, but maybe now that they have that campus, it would be of interest if it makes more sense for parking to be in that area.
And just, Rich, going back to your comment, your thought is that, and this is just a diagram, right, but that the boat trailer parking, truck and trailer parking would be.
Well, they use it now. If you go
Yeah.
to a weekend, that's where
Yeah.
truck and trailers park along the north side, and it's never full. You don't see it truck, trailer back to back, side to side. I just hate to see it moved up to an area that we're opening up for general use.
All right, well, why don't we look at the layout, because I think it's gonna occupy a lot more space. This is a relatively small area and because of the grades and so on. I think what's not seen here is the road that, they actually probably use more up in. You know what I mean? So why don't we look at the layout a little bit and see what
I
actually.
use the bottom,
fits.
yeah,
Yeah.
I use the bottom.
Yeah, because we don't, really want to have, we're trying to keep this area open. Right now, they park right up around the edge and at the corner there, and there's a lot of erosion and there's.
But they also park right there, probably in the shared space of CISF. They're there a lot, and, lots of other uses, not just boats, but windsurfers, and they
Yeah.
have their vans and they park there, and so.
So in part of creating a proper ability to turn around is going to be reshaping or regrading. So, there is a bit of a knoll that you kind of climb up to get there. And so that's going to get steeper and more challenging for vehicles to do that. In the future, we can look at providing access here and sort of see what that layout looks like. So am I hearing then not a lot of interest? And I explained sort of functionality of this, but I think there's concerns about the trucks and the trailers on the outside of the road.
That's right.
I don't either. I mean, I don't love it, but the reality is it's a park where people bring their boats and we need to have parking. Nobody likes to put parking anywhere. But we have to address it.
Wherever we do park boats and trailers, we need to make it organized so
Right.
that you can pull in and pull straight out and eliminate backing out.
Yeah.
Because then we will be in a jam with trailers and whatnot being locked in by someone else who is not good at backing out.
Mhm.
They had a problem in the past. Fourth of July weekend, maybe Ray could answer that. Have you had a overflow of the trailer park issue? You did.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it can get really crowded down there. We had park rangers have to manage that when it gets really busy. I mean, because you know where everybody's parking on the right-hand side of the road, right where CISF building is now, and then in that overflow circled area. Yeah, I've heard many stories of inexperienced, boaters trying to back in and trying to figure out what to do with their vehicles. And yeah, so I would say it's been a challenge in the past. Both. I would say both, because you have a very short time frame and when you can get your boat in. So everybody goes there at that time when it's high tide. And so it could get really crowded at that time, those times, especially, 4th of July weekend, those kinds, of peak season.
Could you, Eric, just tell me what you want to accomplish, what we are going to accomplish today?
Circulation issue overarchingly irrelevant regardless of the layout.
Because I do think we ended last time, John, I think you articulated it, and I wish I could remember exactly what you said, but because Bill was not here and he has tremendous, he's anxious about us having conversations around the park configuration without him being here. And I assured him we aren't making any decisions. That's in the future meetings, but that I think we left here saying there are certain things we needed to address that maybe they're not as dependent. There's some dependency on the configuration, things that we need to deal with trailer parking. We need to think about the beaches, all of the other things that are sort of less contested. Yeah, including the layout of Lot 22. So I don't know if we could move to those things.
Yeah, I will say that just behind.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that. I think functionally trying to make both trailer and truck work in that circle I drew, just putting a lot of programming into a small area. I think conceptually I understand what you're trying to accomplish. I think it's good. Just physically the layout, maybe they would work better if not on that edge, maybe somewhere up in the interior, but trying to keep a little bit more green space closer to where the confluence of all that activity is, which is at the head of the floor.
So
I also think keeping the trailers farther away from where there's all the kid action means that we're less likely to have kid trailer conflict.
Something we talked about last time too was about possibly limiting the number of, or managing the number of boats and trailers, which would then affect parking and traffic too. So we thinking about that as our policy recommendations.
Ray, when you see the parking numbers up here, what do you think? I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really know how many parking spaces there are now. Whenever we have this conversation, I've never liked those, the boat trailers up there to the north of that road. But on the other hand, you know, I keep thinking, gosh, we got all that overflow parking. Why do we have to put in a lot of new parking spaces? But I just wonder, given that you know intuitively how many spaces we have and when we have conflicts, does this feel like a lot or a little?
It's a good question. I'm thinking about it.
Well, and if they're all trying to get in at high tide
Right.
too, right? Like you have a very small window of time to get your boat in, and like how
Right.
many people
True.
a day, right? So middle of the night.
That depends on the boat.
Yeah.
So there are boats that can go in at low tide.
Okay.
So we shouldn't consider only between mid and mid tide.
Okay.
That ramp will be used often.
Okay.
But it depends on the boat size.
Okay.
So right now you've got, I mean, we've got 28 for RV boat trailers and 43. Well, maybe I misunderstand this chart, but in any case, it strikes me that, you know, there are a lot more parking spaces in this plan than I feel exist in real life today.
Right.
And I think we said before that, I mean, there really aren't more than 6 kind of spaces that trailer and truck seem to occupy today. And so I'm wondering whether we're over designing parking.
If anything, I mean, I have spoken with Meg Miles from CSF about parking for boats and trailers. I don't have confirmation of a number she gave me. I've asked Ray to see whether or not he had information to support the number. But Meg has shared with me that as many as 24 truck and trailers have been in the park on any given holiday weekend or busy weekend. These spaces that we see that state 24 visitor boat, truck, trailer, those are not, that is not large enough for 24 spots.
I think, isn't that just for the trailer with
Yes.
the boat on it? Yeah, but that's for the RVs. Yeah. So those are just stationary, is my understanding.
Yeah. Yes.
These,
Yes.
just that, yeah, in the ladder, sort of, to get a boat and a trailer into the space, the truck and trailer is gonna be probably lay out fewer at that flatter.
Yeah.
And John, I think to answer your question, the 43 visitor boat trailer parking is a lot. It seems like a lot. I don't think there's not that much now. And that is a high number. And then the 28 RV boat trailer parking, that is right now, that's seasonal mixed use. It's mostly seasonal RVs that have those spots, but there are, you know, a handful of residents who also utilize that space as well. The space that Eric put that slanted lines, that's all transient parking that is underutilized. And to be honest, I don't know how many boat and trailers you really could fit there. And I think maybe Eric did the math there, and that's where he's coming up with that number. But yeah, 43 seems like a high number for visitor boat trailer parking.
So how about just having a certain portion of that 100 overflow parking be for boats? Is that a dangerous area for them? Because it feels like those diagonal lines you just drew, those are very close to CISF. That makes me a little nervous of backing in, and whereas if they come around and then go down. So yeah, is there like maybe have 25 of those slots?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone.
No. Well, that's where they park on open grass now.
Truck and trailer is in, that's correct.
Right.
It's just the right geometry of the fencing that suggests,
Isn't that true everywhere?
how this works, right? So these bays would probably be, similar, it could be diagonal or they could be parallel along this edge. And we're gonna want those trucks to be able to pull back out to head to the,
Yeah.
right, so the circulation pattern, even though this.
So is it a bad idea or a good idea?
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the only, when you get into a pavilion event and overflow for the pavilion, this needs to have much more structure than there is today, with
Yeah.
fencing or, ropes or, and it doesn't have to be heavy visually, if you have landscaping, you just organize it better so it's more intuitive when people come in, because it's gonna be multiple users, including potentially the septic field for the restroom. So we're gonna have a lot going on.
So when you talk about the septic system there, is it your opinion that we are leaning to a new bathroom in that area or towards renovating the old? Did you mention that a couple times?
Yeah.
The restroom?
I only mean that it's a consideration and sort of just a functional. It's all about land use, the whole discussion has been land use, and how much each use gets appropriated. So in talking with the town engineer, if this facility is rehabilitated or if this system fails, it's probably not gonna be able to be reconstructed as it is. So realistically, that's probably coming like up in here. And I don't know that it's been designed. All I know is that the preliminary work testing's been done to locate it. So I think conceptually, while it looks like a big open field, we want to park RV visitors here. We want to park boat trailers here. We want to park pavilion overflow here. CISF also has activity at the northern end. We also have the stuff. So there's not that all this can't be balanced. It's just each use is going to occupy a percentage of it. As long as we can come in and get by it, which I think we can do, then we'll have access all of it.
Look, if the bathroom goes there, then you have parking with the old bathroom.
Yeah. Well, that's not good.
Right.
Mm.
So in this area.
I feel like that's new information, that bathroom. I have not heard that. That would be the location of a new one. Not a bathroom.
I think that's where the septic field is. I think the new bathroom is proposed kind of where that circle is in that area. And then the septic field just goes across the street. And that's where they have those PVC pipes that they were testing the area.
Yes, that was the first one. So, yeah, and I think there was a design to rehabilitate this one, and then there was a design further upslope for a different facility. Either way, they would make use of that field. That's my understanding.
Oh, also, the difference between 2.0 and 3.0, I noticed, was that the RV sites are bigger and they were redesigned to allow 2 cars at each site. Is that right?
Yes, we put that slide in a couple minutes. We widened each space a little bit. We went from 30 feet wide to 36 feet wide to be able to accommodate 2 cars pulling in with a bit of alcohol on either side. So all of these are bigger than the 2 series that previous.
So both state policy and Middletown allow 1 RV, drivable RV, and 1 car at each site. And so we are being generous and allowing 2 cars per site. So just wanted to point that out.
Right. Do you want to talk? I feel like we spoke about this last time and we gave him direction to look at 2. So because of how it's used and people do stay there all summer and drive to work and it's a 2-person family, but
That's our current policy is the two cars per site. And the thought behind that is typically you have at least 2 people in the RV, and it's, not that you couldn't say you have to park in this overflow lot, but for people that's your primary residence for the summertime, that's where the kind of the discussion was, just based around for convenience for the people that are who have the permit, I guess.
so Cassie, what's your concern on that?
Just this is very parking heavy,
Yeah.
design. And then there are also an additional 36 parking spaces. So we've added 1 parking spot, like made sure we can fit the 2 cars per site, but then also an additional 36. So I just wonder if that's all that necessary.
I think that's a good question. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't envision this being.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, in how many spaces? Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to point to the screen, this is a slide we've added. Essentially the 36 by 60, you can see the layouts. There's essentially an aisle with the RV. So we have an old number on there, but now we're around 2,160 square feet per space. We've crept up a little bit. You can see the average site today is around 2,400 square feet, so we come down a little bit. And the yield plans I'm showing you are based on that 36-foot width, 2 cars. As well.
And we did talk too about how this is much larger site-wise than Middletown. They have much smaller sites.
I mean, is Middletown like the ideal? I feel like it's not the same because it's right on the beach. It's just a little different. I feel like it's great to think about it as a benchmark, but I don't think it's necessarily exactly, at least for me, what I'm, looking to as a perfect comparator. I don't know what it is, and maybe we don't have to decide it. But maybe if we do think about trade-offs, if you can get more RVs and fewer parking, or, we just have to think about what are those things that we value and I guess deliberate them.
I think this reflects some of your discussion, which is a greener perimeter, a public perimeter. This use consolidated this under can fit the parking, and we can get to the yields wherever that discussion lands. I think making more outline parking.
Are you using this just as an example of those? Or, because 50 is just one option. I don't want to normalize anything here.
Walking through, so you can see some of these geometries then start to expand then to the north as we look at adding. So it's still the idea of the green surrounding, you can see sort of a little bit of pressure on this corner as this comes down. Sits to the north and west, but the idea is, what kind of yield can we get? Still keeping the idea of a central core, green space around it. And then I think Rich had the idea of saying, look, if you're here and you're looking at RVs, anyway, it's already kind of contributing to the center concept of the RV camp. Can we add this outer band, to gain additional spaces? So I think this sketch was developed in response to what if we added some here, but try to maximize the green, the north. And we don't have to develop too much. I know you want to move to other things, but this is the look at that concept.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
A concept that, and it's similar to if you left the park roads alone and put the limits like that. But if you brought the 36-foot wide site back to 30, you could technically put in a 72 RV, so whatever's there, 72, 75, would fit in that footprint. If you reduced it, if it's about 30, 16 in each row, and then you have 10 on the south perimeter. If you brought the dimensions back to 30, because some of them are 28 now, so if you make the average, you make that all of them 30, you could, if it goes to roof, you keep 72, it would fit in that footprint, pretty much.
You can use this one. Oh, yeah, big one.
And I would also, because I know Bill isn't here, but he again reinforced through an email that you all received, and I know people are here that are very supportive of what Bill has provided, to say something about why we aren't showing more about moving eastward.
Sure. There's a circulation, we talk about making this one way for the drop-off purposes of the drop-off. And I think that the natural pattern would be continue sort of a one-way pattern now. So I think adding RVs on this side, pushing more to the east, starts to push towards not the CRMC jurisdictional buffers here, so it's pushing closer to that, sort of intensifying that corridor. So now instead of occasionally cars pulling in and out, you have RVs on this edge, which was the concept we're talking about, but also stacked cars on this edge as well. And it just feels like a lot of congestion by introducing a line of RVs into this loop as well. not that that's, you know, all day, but there's certain periods of conflict that you're essentially, you know, without directing the cars to a much broader loop, which seems to create just more confusion, and our opinion is the simplest loop that makes sense, is not intensifying something. I think maybe we should number these roads, or I'll start calling. So, this is the east one. We'll start with road 1, 2, 3, and then at the front, or the one to the west is 4. Right. But anyway, that was the thinking of not putting RVs on double loading that road.
Let me just check. You've also got that space is bounded by some of the CISF space to the north. And we just talked about the septic system to the south of that space, right? So
CISF, they have a flex agreement. Which
yeah, exactly.
They have parking in here, and the primary use, which is this guy A, and then their flex use, which is this guy B.
Right. But one of the effective challenges is, you know, you do a terrace and fit maybe 4 or 6 campers in, right?
I mean, I was always opposed just because of that intensifying congestion in that area. And I would think we'd want to move it away, but also, I don't know that, I know there's not a huge distance, but having campers so close to campers, and the campers and the CISF campers, like early in the morning, there's a lot of activity, probably not great for either audience, but. Okay.
Definitely, and not on its final side, pushing out the road out of the changes a little bit, reminiscent of the existing. Where this one pushes to 75, it does it in a similar way. I think the suggestion is still looking at, can we create green space up here for 4 to the west? We can eliminate that road circulation and return that to green space. And in this scenario, a line of RVs fronting. So it's going to be sort of operationally challenging to manage. Certainly nice to have a front yard that fronts to the west. So that might be an area where fencing or something else becomes important to make sure there's good definition. We are here open space. Okay. So, and just to put this in discussion, this was Bill's sketch, circulated. And he and I had a couple email exchanges talking about sort of pros and cons of this idea. There may be a new version of this, but this is again just to kind of consider the goal, which is really aligned with some of these earlier ones. 50. We have the green space to the north. He has parallel parking down here, the more expansive, that's probably more realistic. He's also got RVs on this side of this road, and then pretty intense RVs and a new road up in here with a parking lot. Some of those elements I think would be challenging. So before we, so if we want to draw that, or if the direction is to draw that, we really want to talk about some of the particulars. She and I have been through, we should go through this as a group. When he was presenting his idea about parking lot, I think that ends up being at the top of this corner. I think it's challenging to build a big parking lot like that, and maybe not the way we want to serve. So anyway, that was sort of the underpinnings of 50 and what 50 might look like. Go to the next one. again, this was just kind of looking at the overall distribution of the sites today. And so what we were doing, kind of subtle adjustment, but shows up in all of these scenarios when it's not on it, is the elimination of that road or far west. It's the elimination of this road and also sort of reorganization of the roads in here too, so you can see that kind of sawtooth pattern. We're looking at pulling this road and just getting a more efficient layout through that edge. And then again, everything outboard of that would be sort of public, and depending on which alternate you look at, either campings inside the road or something.
That southerly east-west road, how does the drawing on 3.4 and actually all the other ones, I guess, in series 3, is B shorter? I'm just trying to figure out whether you extended the road up between B and E or whether you brought.
It, yeah, the road today, that's kind of hard to see sort of what happens. It's sort of in here. It does this and kind of comes down through like that. So that's how we sort of gained that.
Yeah, okay.
That this layout, which is given over to tents and RVs now, right, when there's some parking there. So sort of gaining it's high ground, it's sort of organizationally and circulation perspective, it just makes the flow for boat trailers, and this is just challenging and maybe unnecessary. Well, so sets up the land use a little bit better. Then we looked at the layout next one. This is one that wasn't in the pre-meeting, it's very much in the development of picture of what happened on the outside, then came here. So regardless of what's happening in the middle, the idea of green space and connectivity all along the edges, there are a couple of features, and we wanted to start to develop a path network that makes sense. There's some ideas expressed here that we've been talked about before, but looking at the right nature trail instead of dead ending in a parking lot, bringing it through north, providing a connection across and taking a connection to the western path. We probably don't need to name these trails at some point, but right now there's a lot of disconnects and they just kind of dump into parking lots or busy streets, and so park roads. So we want to organize that flow and make those connections possible. I know I've shown some sketches where maybe CISF crossed the circle and crossed the ramp, but they can also cross here on this edge safely as well. I think it's going to be a dialogue with that as far as what they think might work best. And then the other end, the Get Right Nature Trail, creating a reasonable parking crossing here in the parking areas, the overflow parking for the pavilion, and connections back to the pavilion itself. We talked a little bit with town engineer about this, and we had.
Looks like it's already happening, I swear to God, out there at Fort Getty. I'm like, whoa, it's amazing.
Pedestrians from the road, it's especially at night, difficult conditions, is not one to walk their shore. So if they're moving materials, so they have some extra material that work, and even that out. And then part of this connection is to bring a path up around in front of the fort and be able to make the fort, the battery concern, more visible. So restoration pieces of that, I think that's a big picture goal, but making it more visible, cleaning off some of the vegetation, allowing opportunities to interpret the fort, so engaging the fort in the circulation part. So coming up the hill and sort of regrading the terrain, we talked about evening out some of the low areas. We dropped in about maybe 3 small shade plans or structures in each of the turret locations. It was just a simple geometry that's there, but we know that there's sort of an open space where the guns cannons were mounted. So we've got these 3 kind of positioned in there, and then a path network connected them. And that provides interpretation for the fort, maybe starts to open up some of the views that we talked about from up above, provides some organizational elements that just means to open expanse. Right, we haven't talked about whether these would be first come, first serve, or whether they're just open for anyone to use. But when we talk about the public using this park more, and not just being only for people that are there as campers, Some of these elements like parking, some of these elements like connectivity, some of these elements like features along the way, interpretation, and we'll talk about the crow's nest, the battery on this side. All that connectivity starts to make it a more public space with these other elements and sort of the we're a little challenged. We have this row of existing trees. Maybe those would be candidates for transplanting. They kind of break up. They break up what would be a nice green space here, whether there's RVs here or not. Then you might like the trees as a buffer if the RVs were not occupying the space. And maybe create a nice room that's kind of associated to the south. So that's a look at big picture circulation. Just two other notes. There's two foundations here, which could be shade structures or something that get repurposed. The foundation could be decked over with a wood deck. Is going to just upscale maybe appearance of the surface to make it easier to get to. And this one by parking would be ADA accessible. This one may be accessible. So as part of this green perimeter, you could have these shade structures or its destination. I have some other things on this, but I wanted to just put questions on sort of where this is headed. Because what I'm trying to do is marry the outside vision that we've been working on with your input to what's happening on the interior and work our way to what's that look like, right? Just how we build that.
So I've been thinking about pedestrians. So when you talk about circulation, we've talked more about cars. And so I guess, is this how you envision pedestrians would be using the park more through the trail system, not the roads?
I think that the roads would continue because of the nature. You know, we show like an interior aisle, which could be traversable, would just be grass between the RVs. There's some of that kind of exists today informally. But I think people do walk on the streets with them. I'd like to see people come off of Getty Road. We talked a little bit about this before. I think it's just a matter of managing, you know, how this park goes, but you can cross here, and there could be kind of a serpentine sort of connection, you know, up to the north. If that's desirable, it's sort of a balancing act that formalizes things, so we don't need that so much, but it might be nice to have a connection from one end all the way up without having.
I think that makes sense when you have the boats and trailers there too, because it's, you know, they're trying to park, and if you have the people off the road, that makes sense to me.
So depending on the surface, part of what we're doing is the surface most likely. We'll talk about trail systems, but so some of the value eliminating parts is sort of looking to do other things in other areas with City. So sort of trading off to the degree and navigate that, trading off areas that are currently hard surface for maybe a smaller trail system offered by green, or maybe this is a mowing trail that's just got definition to it.
Great.
Big picture stuff.
Yeah.
Next slide. This is something we did with DEM. It was a pilot project for them. I've been out there. It takes you up to the top of the battery overlooking East Passage. So if you're familiar with this trail, it's a pretty ledgy, pretty broken up trail. This is a stabilized path. We hook them with, so it's essentially like a stone dust. It has an organic polymer there that helps the lines stay together. And so it's not concrete or an asphalt. It does absorb some water. You have to manage the water that runs off of it. And it can be raked and resurfaced every spring with just the material that's on. So this thing needed to be wide to be able to bring equipment up there. I think most of our paths could be 6 feet wide or something like that. And other trails like the Kid Wright Nature Trail, it's mulched now, and stay that way. This surface is accessible. So when we talk about accessibility to pavilions, things like that, for parking, that type of surfacing maybe works best in some areas. Other perimeter paths might stay grass or might be mulch. I think it's a combination of surfaces. But if you haven't been out, you could walk out. We did 2 for them as a pilot project. This is the area where just down below is the parking lot here. What we're looking at is this bay parking. And there's just a little bit of space there that's sort of lost space. And again, I think there's a way to bring the path through here, so we'll get this connection up. And try to make this connection across so that we're not dead ending in this parking lot or sending people back out into traffic, but we're trying to make this coastal all over. I'm sorry, I guess the image on the right is pretty dark, but this is kind of what you're looking at, so it looks like a runway almost. So no wonder cars go fast, and no wonder people are celebrating for this space. And at the end, just trying to go on to the next thing. So because this is a mixing zone, I think we probably would be right to talk about different surface treatments. I think we talked about, larger paver, might be a texture in that surface, maybe for certainly like CISF, or as we approach the turnaround, just to visually and tactily slow down vehicles so that they're not kind of moving through that as fast as they are. Next image. This is something we just put together. Maybe you've seen it. Could be as simple as street art. It could be something that CISF did in front of their windows, painting on the road. Visually, people slow down and they see something. So I don't think we need to do speed bumps or anything like that. I think we can just look at surface treatments. So this will work our way into the big picture recommendations, but thoughts about how to slow down people and kind of control, particularly north of this river. To the north of it. And then the beach itself, I know you had asked a little bit about the beaches. I want to talk a little bit about site amenities and some thoughts on those. The kayak racks that are there and the dinghy racks, they're convenient for the users, sort of optimally convenient, but they really create like a visual barrier to the water. Visual access is pretty limited. And actually physical access is kind of limited too, to about 3 feet between them. And so I think there's another way to orient the racks, whether it's a herringbone pattern or something like that, that allows them to be slid out. I'm sure we can develop our own design, or we can modify these, or the other rack systems that are out there, but to get something that still gives good access to the water, but visually just opens up this area. Next slide, please. There's also sort of space behind them. I know that overhang, but if they get positioned right, if you're going to look at the existing vegetation, I think they can be even manipulated a little bit now to be able to open it up a little bit before they get better use of the space that's there. Next slide. Yeah. This is an example. This is a fabricated rack, so it's probably steel, maybe PVC, but just visually they're much lighter. So the point on these is that when they're not full of things, they kind of go away and disappear. And so I think the one on the right is for paddling, whereas the kind of combination. So this doesn't work in every instance, but instead of timber and lumber, we might be able to look at racks that just visually disappear in off season. Might be something worth considering. Next slide. I know we want to talk about site furniture, so I thought I'd just do a quick inventory. This is sort of what we have. This is where we're at on
Downtown.
Yeah, and there are also benches with outbacks too. But I think for this park, it's nice to have a back, where you have bike racks as well. I think it's important to note that the trash or something is on top. Maybe seagulls on. Next slide. Some of the furniture that's out there today. Next slide. This is an example. So this is like seating for conversation. So just isolated benches, so sort of floating landscape, providing L-shaped or open angles where you can look at a view but actually have other people join you and have a conversation. Might be interesting. Next slide. Also companion seating. So this has a hard surface adjacent to the bench for that's accessible for wheelchair. So we should look at opportunities to do that as well. Excellent. And it's just a collection of furniture. It's really more to get your reaction. Alyssa kind of joined me today, but she wanted to sort of put some ideas and show you some things that are at places. Benches around trees, which is what that image is on the top. Different style, different tables. Metal with wood slats or recycled slots. Also some that start to morph into the more furniture that you so less park bench, but more like a on deck chair or a chair bottom with some bike racks that don't even look like bike racks. And I don't know if this is your direction, and I don't know if the committee has to say definitively, yes, bike racks have two.
I don't think that we're gonna, I think we would, the way I'm thinking anyway, and others can get as detailed as you want, but I'm thinking we would just say, we think there needs to be thought around design standards for things like furnishings but yeah, we're not gonna be dictating what they should be. The principles. Yeah.
And then isolated furniture that again is more like a personal. Also, there are some options on solar powered lighting. There are some lighting options on solar powered poles where the pole itself is photovoltaic. So it means no conduit, no electricity, but can provide low level dark sky front, full cutoff illumination. I'm not sure about the style. That's a baller that we use before, but it shows an extra footpath. So it provides a really cool light. Maybe on Fort Getty Road, or maybe in some certain challenging areas, it might be nice to provide a little bit of light. Again, I think maybe our future set of recommendations, but general framework for some thoughts on this. Also, we talked a little bit about the pathway systems. I think the frame shells at the top, exposed aggregate concrete, would be probably appropriate for the harder surfaces, like wood benches and stabilized aggregate. I gave you examples of those. The beach access, the rollout style. I think maybe we need to deploy more of those to make more accessible to the other beaches. Signage, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Interpretive panels. Selective use of split rail fence, I think coupled with plantings can provide some definition we talked today about. Also, that has like a pollinator meadow in the background, so part of what we'd be doing, probably envisioning some habitat creation. So maybe some areas that are less known that we dedicate this back to the creation of habitat. So that kind of visual where you have a mode area, which is more public use. This we're going to naturalize, like an area by the nature trails one we talked about was sort of mowing down to that marsh. I'm not sure we really need to do that in the future. We maybe can green that up, commit that over to habitat, and come up with a concept like that for some naturalized areas. And then the reinforced turf I've mentioned is a geotextile, a cell or a geogrid that holds and stabilizes the soil, and then the grass is seeded on top when it's mown. It'll support the trucks and trailers. When there's not a truck and trailer there, unless you're right on top of it, it's generally just open looking. So some initial thoughts on that service. Signage, I just wanted to take a look at where we're at, and I think it's a good starting point. And I put in a couple of examples of some of the things that we're working on. I think what happens is signs come along as you need them, and it's part of the policy. And again, I don't know if a full signage palette is something we need to develop right now. But
Yeah. No, I think the recommendation of having one that kind of adheres to the principles, so it's not fancy, but.
And I mean, I think that there's, I think it's nice about that, what's the right level for the way it's I think some of these, go ahead to the next slide. So this is an example of more unified, it's a new product facility, but just graphically, it uses the same colors. The town seal appears on the more important regulatory signs, like things like that would probably be things you want to consider. And then we also, with this client, we worked on small scale signs, that they don't have to be gigantic to be able to be communicating as to what should be going on. They can be more integrated with fencing, posts, and all things like that. And then we talked about this a little bit, but absence of signage, so there's no signs when you come in gatehouse. We talked about just identification and then also the restroom facility. Maybe having wayfinding to the restroom facility in the park. Actually, have students. So again, I don't know what's. I haven't really thought about what's right at the entrance, and we may not need to say that. You have a sign for one. There's a sign typology. Maybe there's Colorado. This is another sign. They have such program that sign color coded. It also kind of highlighted some of the amenities and again, I don't know, recreation area, if you want to say, you know, town dock, and, well, we already, most people know that, but in this case, the plan stops some of the traction. Invasive plants, so there is a process to being able to managing invasive plants, and that was a question that came through. So part of that consists of an initial inventory, and we've done a little bit of a high level, just sort of what's there. We have, you know, well, scientists, invasive plant managers, I'm one of the sort of three, to develop a program that's to manage the invasives once they've been identified. And then what happens is, especially working with CRC in the back, we have to have this areas and so this is just the beginning of a plan that's kind of looking at some initial plantings that we might recommend. I think probably want to expand on planting some bed grasses to try to maximize the leaves that we have and cautiously plant. But planting trees and shrubs are important areas to create, you know, definition and those outdoor homes. So beginning to put some ideas together for this that you can, if you want to, incorporate. So we can't do this today, but I think in the near future, we probably want to work on the center to a point where, because it informs what happens on a large degree. We talked about the pedestrian circulation, probably or local circulation. I'm going to look at the hotel marketing more closely, so we'll talk about what can happen with all that in more detail and look at some of those challenges there, and then try to get the way we had written our proposal was essentially to get to a final schematic plan. Was the intent. So I know there's multiple, I can take you through multiple alternates. So as a committee, it would be great if we can get to this is the plan. I know there's steps beyond that, but that's what we'd like to get to. Is sort of one version, if you're looking at it like this, it would include lot 22 and come out of the 10 sites. This is the overall schematic. Would be the goal. If we do that.
I guess, well, the outstanding things in my mind are lot 22 configuration. And again, I don't think we need to figure it out. I think what the town council is looking for us to do based on the charge is general parameters. We're not going to be able to determine exact number of tent sites or exactly what a storage shed should look like. But if we think a storage shed should be in that area with a bathroom and general tent camping, we'll say that, but we'll have to give some kind of a drawing. I guess I don't know what's different between the schematic, like having one schematic and these options that you're showing us now. Okay.
One of them, probably down and reduce further, you got to about 20. And I think we have some feedback. Parking lot, so we would have to go.
Yeah. Okay.
But this did have provisions for a small maintenance building, restroom, shower, if that's something they would consider.
Yeah.
So we know to focus on the north end of the.
So going back to that proposal, we are trying to lock in singular proposal. If we lock in an area for campers, but leave the number open. Like that area right there, depending on the spacing, you could fit anywhere from 50 to 70 sites, depending on the width. Is that what you're trying to say? We'll say that RVs will be in section, I don't have a piece of paper right here. So you're saying you'll put RVs in BA and E? E would be this. The number is up for consideration to the council, but that's the area we recommend. Is that what you're suggesting?
You could get pretty far with that approach. I think some of the big discussion points is, should this be RV? You know, given this concept of activating the space and these views, but you know, you're better off pushing RVs to the north, some of the space they occupy now, because we want to retain this for public use. You know, and sort of make this perimeter road, the perimeter road with the RV inside it.
So it would just be moving public space to either north
Yeah.
or south.
But
Exactly.
that is kind of a discussion, right, discussion point that, ideally that would be something you could get to as a group, say, we like this to support this, or let's make this public and let's push the RVs out. Because that changes the way the pathways work and the parking works and things like that, once we kind of, it's been a little elastic and
Yeah.
we can draw a plan, but each plan has to be a little bit different, the inside keeps moving.
And again, I think it's direction. I mean, we are giving the town council direction of what a group of 5 that clearly has distinct perspectives on this generally thinks. I think we're fairly representative of actually the town. So if we could get to some direction, I don't know if it's, I was thinking, and maybe your approach is better, Rich, but I was thinking maybe it's 4 options and we actually we vote and we say, your top vote, your top choice gets 4 pink stickers and your second choice gets 3 and and third, in that way, and the most stickers. And or some version of that we actually say the general direction of this committee that there was not unanimity unless we can get there. The last meeting made me think we're not. And then Mary Maha's email saying that we could have 3 options. Clearly, we can't have 3 options if we want one schematic. We can say, this is the general direction, these were other options considered, or this is the general direction, and there can be a minority report by others that don't like what the general direction or the final vote is. But I think we should give a general direction, both because of this contract issue, but also because I think it helps us get something done, or we're just deferring our arguments for the town council to have. I'd rather not do that.
Yeah, I just think the hard part's gonna be coming down to a number. I think we can probably define the area, but I don't think this group is gonna come down to a number that we all agree on.
Well, should we try or not? I mean, what do you think?
Getting back to what Eric was saying, if you look at, for example, 2.4, you look at item 2.4 and 3.1, what they have in common is that the area furthest to the left is empty and there's no sites there. Okay, so that could be like one option is you don't put any RV sites in that area. Here are a few examples of doing that. And then you have others where you do include RV sites in that area and you show what the alternative is. I mean, yeah, I think that's where you're gonna be.
I actually don't care. So it's one or the other. I like opening up green space. If it's toward the north or the south, I don't really care. I do care if we cut to 50, personally. But it's just one vote.
Consolidated back to narrow. Tall or narrow. But that geometry to some degree is driven by the parking space. But I think it's got a lot of good stuff around the edges, and it's just to have a cohesive plan. We really need that sort of roadmap footprint. Say this is where we think the RV camping goes.
The camping plan on this drawing is which 3 point? Thank you.
Which one is that one? How many is that?
62.
62.
And that's at 36 wide.
Right, that's the two.
going to 30 wide just gives you, I believe, one additional space per row. So if you had 12, you'd go to 13. If you had,
Yeah, but each one of those is the original squares. I think one's 465, 465 feet, and the other's, I think, 10 feet less or 10 feet more. So if you divide that number by 30, one is 15 and something, and the other is 16 and change. So if you go by where the existing roads are, if you angle the roads, you can add more. Or if you move the road on the south end to be even, you can add more. But the way it's now, it's pretty much, if you keep it 30 on both those two sections there, you would get close to 64. I don't think you'd get 64 because of the terrain on the southeast corner of the lower section, but you could be close. I think if we decide the area, whether it's those two center rows and whether we keep going north or stay in that area south is fine. I think the way the road pattern you talked about by moving the parking down to, I'm just gonna say the area closest to the main road. The way the traffic pattern would work, if you kept that open as far as parking, it makes sense for people coming into CISF, they turn the corner, they could park. I know it's considered RV parking right now, but I think the distinction of what parking is what parking
Yeah, I
can
agree
be
with that.
clarified later. But having that loop creates a general central parking area. So anybody coming into the park makes that loop. They can either park on the eastern side or they can park on the western side of that lot to park. And it seems like it makes the flow of vehicles to park pretty easy. Because you know you could take a left at CISF, pull in there and park, or you could take the first left after the restrooms and pull in there and park, and then you're centralized into the park. You can go to either beach, you can walk the paths from there, either path, you can join the Kit Wright Trail, or you can go to the trail that goes up to the top of the fort. And it just seems, as far as parking goes, not to space it all over the place, make a general parking area. That way, when the pavilion's full, you have major parking there. If CIS has a major function, it's all right there. It just seems keep the parking simple, and the traffic just dictates that it's easy in, easy out. But that's probably my idea, just to keep campers off that hill, because then you have traffic going in between rows of campers, and it's going to be a lot of traffic first thing in the morning, end of the day, running in between two sets of campers.
Eric, so we're looking at a concept plan right now. And to what extent do you think the concept plan might change? It's okay. Take it down. To what extent would the concept plan might change once you start engineering the roads and looking at elevations and things of that type?
Because this pattern is essentially there today, we feel comfortable that this layout works, with the exception of there's some transition areas at this end here where it gets steeper that we have to, someone would have to look at closely as to how these spaces might be terraced a little bit because of the slope. Some stuff up between. This could be accomplished in a couple different ways. This could get cut, or this is sort of removed and sort of configured so that these spaces can be pulled across road one. Another way to do this would be grade stays the same. We each provide parking here, and you walk up, and the RVs could come in from the west, and sort of like a fade. So less earthwork maybe in that scenario if there are foundations of lead or other reasons not to cut this. It's kind of the next level of design, but I think the yield more or less we feel like you can attain.
Okay, so I think that's an accomplishment in and of itself, is understanding that this is practical, what we're looking at. So this actual specifics of where the parking is located and the direction that the direction of the roads, the circulation itself. I'm trying to compare this to like doing any land development project where you have different uses, whether it be a shopping center or something else, where what you're really looking at is you're looking at the overall view of it and where things are, well, where things are happening and how you're going to transition from one thing to the other. And that happens all the time and when we review projects. So at this point here, I think you've gotten as far as you can go with this idea of a concept. You actually know a whole lot more than most people do when they're building something new. So I'm thinking that what you have in front of you is probably the best stopping point because it is conceptually verified. And it can be certified that yes, it can be built this way, but there's still leaves room for other options. But the main character of it is we've got you pulling the RVs off of the fourth row at the top, and you're pulling things back away from the waterfront to free up some additional space. And you've been critically and thoroughly looking at site circulation. And I think the other amenities, we know that they're going to happen. Those are kind of going to take care of themselves. So I think you're in a really good place here.
So both to your point and to Richard Smith's point, one of the things I keep thinking about is right now there's a lot of conflict because there is no space. Everything's kind of spread out. And so what we are doing is starting to consolidate. And I think that does help. And
Delineating areas for different uses.
Right.
And I mean, that's what land use planning accomplishes. So if you have those areas for the RVs and you decide, no, we want to go with the more ones that don't have 2 parking spaces, because we like the idea of having a little bit of extra parking over here, then you can actually get more RVs in.
And so the difference too between having the RVs either in the south or the north side is for me, I think about like, what does that mean for like the uses of those spaces too, which is what Eric said. If we have it on the south side, it's kind of tying into, it's going to abut the trail system. And then if we have it on the north side, what are the kind of effects there? And so maybe that's part of our recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's things we aren't completely agreed on. And Bill's not here, but I know he doesn't like, he would like to move it more to the east but I think generally there's agreement of opening up to the west, whether it's as much as we have here or more, that's a question, but I think that's generally agreement. And for around, at least us around the table, not expanding RVs to that area that we've designated as parking to the east, whatever that number is. C, D, yeah. And then, I guess when I say I didn't really care, I do think the way it's laid out here is better in terms of using the north land for the RVs as opposed to the south. I mean, the south versus the north, sorry. I'm directionally challenged. Yeah.
Is it, Richard's point had been, when you're here, you're seeing RVs anyway. But when you think about circulation, we're bringing boats and trailers. Lots of parks have a perimeter road. So we're sort of establishing that perimeter to kind of create a public edge, right? So, and this has got nose-in parking, not a big parking lot, but kind of discreetly tucked in. So now this is campers, we're kind of bringing you through, and that's a little bit different than just to extend these to the north. Again, subtle decisions, but as part of sort of what's the envelope and what's the sort of fit that.
We did talk about this in a previous meeting, the idea of simply moving that south east-west road south by farther south by a width. 5. Moving it south by one camper width. Right, which then which then pushes the, yeah, right.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because then it keeps it all.
Yeah.
I think too, there are kids in these, campsite, and we heard that there's families that
Of course there
and
are.
So,
They've been coming for a long time.
if you have, these busy, main park roads too, and kids are playing there as well. I mean, that's something to think about. People crossing the roads and playing and using the space while there's still traffic coming through.
I have one question, which you sort of talked about before, but which I'm not sure I understood the answer to. I think you said that the roundabout as presented right now, it probably doesn't really work for any boat trailer to actually turn around on.
The design here does.
Okay.
I think some of what happens is, to some degree, I think boat trails, when you're all the way down in the ramp, you sort of have a different trajectory as you come out. And so they may not find the circle convenient. That makes sense, because you're deeper down and they kind of pull out today. I think what happens though for cars is you get into a 3-point turn for a CISF drop off or a pickup truck or anybody just coming in, or an RV just turning around, is it's a multi maneuver to navigate to head back out. And so regardless of whether there's a green space in the center or whether it's just a surface, is we look at just elbowing that back a little bit to be able to complete that. So if you miss this left turn for the drop off, you turn around here effectively without time that people return to the south. But again, just keeping a logical sort of pattern. And if it's again, you're seeing this as two-way flow, so if you're coming back through, you just pass by.
For the boating community and even just a vehicle looking to do a turnabout, I have never imagined that we would have a raised center surface. It would maybe just be a cobble surface instead of a paved surface, so that that center ring in no way impedes any vehicle trailer.
And again, I think in the final report or recommendation, we don't have to be specific. It's more, this is something that emerged because this is a critical thing that needs addressing and whenever it's finally adopted. Yeah.
Green, you can make it big enough to go on. That much fair. I think if you're going to make it a paved surface and just drive over it, that's just definition of the surface. You shrink it down a little bit.
Yes.
But being able to turn around entirely for a truck and a trailer.
No.
Is important. Yeah.
I don't believe that you need to allow a truck and trailer to turn around in that space because you're giving them a perimeter road to escape. Yes, going west, up along the top. And if they're bringing an empty trailer to what may now become a new parking lot, that's the approach, because I would think that we'd want to have an entrance only and an exit only to that parking area.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, so I think at one point you did show a circulation pattern that reflects that. Maybe it's one of these other.
Yeah, we did.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think being able to turn around into a multi-flow turn makes sense, but and that's also for CISF folks. If you happen to miss this, you're not on this.
One that you showed crosswalks and everything, I think that was a very good plan to integrate pedestrian access into that system. You may want to go back and look at that. Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of time. I know we've already gone 2.5 hours, so we should probably think about the next meeting and for the next couple of meetings and how we're going to move forward. I will get you all draft recommendations to mark up and we can work through some will, I think, be easy and others not so easy. But I guess, and then what's missing for others? I mean, for me, the thing that we haven't really talked about is battery whiting. You know, how are we thinking about that? The beaches, maybe it's something we can't really get to, but I think that's something that was on our list of things to consider and has been brought up by people that have written to us. We'll talk about this, I guess. We'll have something about the lot 22, but anything else from others that just hasn't been, we haven't done?
So, and the parking by the beaches, if there can be parking by the beaches. Oh, so the Pavilion Beach, so
Like slightly more defined? Is that what you mean? What do you mean?
more than 2 spots.
You
By
can't-
the,
You can't remove
you can't,
any growth that's there.
okay,
Yeah, there's,
right at the Whiting.
right, there's 2 designated areas that probably
Mhm.
each 2, 3 or 4, I don't know, 3.
Yeah, we did have some conversations.
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Materials. Because there's no definition,
Mhm.
you just forget it.
Mhm.
We were to lay out stalls.
Still gonna be hard to get parking. You'd have to get there at 9.
Yeah, that's so true. You have to ride your bike. It's the bike beach. Anything else on people's minds that we really want to make sure?
And with lot 22, we talked about the tent camping there, but there's more land than, like, the tent camping wouldn't occupy the whole lot, would it?
No. I think at the last meeting, maybe Ray had suggested that the parking could work on the road.
Mhm.
The thought years, I don't remember.
So
We had
yeah.
a lot of sort of pathways coming out to connect. And we sort of like this where the campground parking is off of
Mhm.
Getty Road.
Mhm.
But there had been a suggestion about adding it. I don't know if we looked at that at all.
As your town planner, I like the idea of the parking being interior to the system, assuming that you might have some kind of delineation between the parking spaces and the individual tent sites. I see that at the front, there's a few parking spaces when you come in, and there's a lovely turnoff in that. I think that's fantastic for the purposes that you have. But I do think that the majority of the parking should be off of the street so that you can pull out straight and there isn't going to be a lot of backing in and out. It just can't happen that way.
Eric, in addition to where that pull off is, that's where the dump station is. So we just want to be mindful of where tent sites are and where the dump sites are, and you might have a unwelcome. So it's like, yeah, you see where the pull off is on that road?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's like literally right there.
Okay. So yeah.
There you go.
So maybe you
Yeah.
want to move that one.
So it's the least popular site. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Cassie, and something that you gave us for that's in this, I've kept it here, but it had campgrounds must cover at least 10 acres and maintain 100-foot setbacks. Do you know if it's on page 23?
That was from zoning.
So is this, does this adhere to that, or what is that RV camping? Oh, it's the whole. So not just lot 20. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a lingering thing in here. Okay. Okay.
And we're showing, essentially.
John? Yeah.
Before we adjourn, if we did the meeting on May 7th, could we do it in the morning?
I think so.
This room's available.
So you can be home for dinner?
I'm supposed to be in California that night. So if we do it in the morning, no problem.
Is 9 a.m. early enough, or do you have to get going before?
Yeah, I can do morning.
Well,
It's my running day, but I can do the morning. No, I'm kidding. I can do the morning. Yep, that works.
We'll check, make sure the room's available.
Okay. So we'll do 9 to 11 on that day, and we will pretty much keep the agenda to working through recommendations and okay. Great. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Not that I'm in a hurry. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for accommodating.
Okay.
Is Ed part of this? Is Ray part of this? Is Ed part of it? Because he's been my main point person on this.
Ray, certainly. I don't want to do it. Yeah, because I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. I understand that